Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much again for joining me in one of my sessions. Today I'll be talking about how to file your income tax return. I've been using a service called Turbotax for the past few years. You'll be able to access it at turbotax.com. And as you can see on the screen, you can start for free and then you just pay when you submit your tax returns, right? So as I said, I've been using this for at least 6 or 7 years. I'll tell you the story. When I landed in the U.S., for my first year, I tried to get in touch with a few local tax professionals, and they were not really interested. It was a small case for them. Probably they are super busy, and they were not as responsive as I expected them to be. I finally got in touch with a lady who did my income taxes for the first year, and then someone else recommended TurboTax, and since then I've been using TurboTax. So the thing is, when you use a local professional, you have to drive to their office back and forth, right? So I use, my first year I spent about 30 minutes each time, and you have to go there a few times to discuss or to bring papers to them or to make sure that what they've done is correct, that is like a revision process, etc. And I think I paid around $600 that first year. After using TurboTax, I'm only paying $300 on a yearly basis now. And my income tax, for me, it's a complicated one. I had never done this myself, and I've been making changes to my personal life and work life over the past few years, and so this makes it a bit more complicated for me every single year. But I think it's I've been saving around probably $300 or $400 every year. So I've already saved, let's say, one, two, three, four, six, about $3,000 maybe over the past few years. So that's why one of the reasons I recommend it. It's changed. If you want to be smart about money, for me every single penny counts. And so if you can save $3,000 here, why not to do it, right? So we'll come back to this slide later. But when you log in, you'll see some icons like these ones, and that's one of the things I love about TurboTax. Everything is very simple. Even very people who don't understand finances or money very well can do this themselves. So they have categorized, your life into different buckets, and you basically select those that apply to you. So when I had, new children, then I would select this one. If you get married, you select this one as well. If your boss decided to give you a bonus, then you pay this one. If you have a new job, then you also do this one. So you have to pick and choose those that apply to you. Every time I do it, this takes about 3 to 4 hours for me. And you would say, yeah, no, you have to go to a local professional because it's faster. Well, that's not the case. That first year I did with that lady, it still took me like 5 hours. I had to go there a few times. I had to bring her all the documentation, and I had to revise what she had done a couple of times probably. So all in all, I think you will not save time, but you will still, doing the income tax return, but you will definitely save time driving back and forth and basically paying less for the whole process. And so you start going through these categories and you have to answer all their questions. Now, the way TurboTax this, they've simplified the process very, 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 very well. Each of these buckets is divided into questions, and those questions are easy to read and easy to answer, right? You usually have a yes, no, or a cell where you have to introduce some numbers, but it's very simple. You just click next and you go into the next question. So the process for me has 3 steps. The first one is you do it yourself by basically going through these questions one by one. And then you also have an online search, which is a tool inside TurboTax that allows like a chat function where you can go in there and ask any questions. I'll give you some examples here. Like if you have a new mortgage, you type, how to submit the information for the mortgage, and the system will give you some information back. And then you also have a link where you can read more about mortgages and where to put the interest and stuff like that. Or if you have to, you know, report some dividends, then you can do the same with dividends. Sometimes through through those different boxes, there are forms or so that I want to know more about, and that's when I go into the search and I type it and I read what it means, and then I understand quickly how I need to respond. And the other thing I would say is sometimes you will come up to questions that, or some things that you don't understand, you don't know how to do, that you need to clarify better. It's very important, I feel, to have a notebook, a notepad, where you can write those questions down so you can remember later. So once all is done, this is going to take a few hours, those 3 or 4 hours, right? The next step is to get in touch with a professional. Yeah, the fact that TurboTax is online doesn't mean that there is no professional checking your numbers if you want. And so that's step 2. If we go back here to this page, this is a screenshot of how it looks like. And so you can see at the bottom right, there is, in this case, this lady who provides life help. And so when you finish, you go there, you click, and some pop-up opens, some panel that allows you to see more information, and you can request a meeting with one of these professionals. And so in my experience, every single time, I've done this every single time, I've met different people every single time. And the good thing is you see who they are. You need to do this in front of your computer. So you will see their faces, you will see who they are, but they don't see you. They, through some codes that you need to introduce in a particular field, they tell you, they'll see your screen and you can work together on those questions that you have. They will not do a full 100% review of all the information you have introduced, but it's an excellent tool for discussing, a bunch of questions. In my case, I usually have about 7 to 10 questions that I want to discuss with them. So they'll do that. They'll give you their answer, how they feel about it. They'll provide some feedback. And then you go into the particular categories and you respond to that based on that feedback. So once then step 1 and step 2 are done, then step 3. Payment happens at the end. And one of the options that you have at the end is what they call protection, this max thing. Basically, because I do my income tax myself, I want to make sure that if there is an issue, if I've not provided the right information or everything or anything as the IRS is expecting, and they send me a letter, then I want to get in touch with someone who is a specialist about it in TurboTax, who will help me in that process. So over the past 7 years, this only has happened once to me, and it was actually during COVID, where there was a question that I didn't interpret as I was expected to, and they sent me a letter. They wanted some clarification, so I took advantage of this. I contacted the expert, and they asked me to basically run the process through them, and they requested some information. They were the people who basically send my responses to the IRS, etc. So I think it's an excellent service. So all these 3 things together, all the questions plus the live review plus the protection, is about $300 in my case. So I think it's totally worth it, and I'll do my income tax returns this way going forward forever if I can. So after you finish the live and you buy the protection, then it's time to submit. So in my case, I have to submit to a couple of different states. I live in one and I work in a different state. So you can submit most of the information online through TurboTax. In some cases, you have to print it out and send it by mail. So they'll give you all the details about that. They'll give you the address you have to submit it, etc., etc. So I think they do an excellent job at running you through the full process, and then all the notifications happen probably via either email through the IRS or through mail. But if your income tax return gets accepted, and all those amounts will be also disclosed in this page. I've just hidden them now for our purposes today, but you'll see some numbers here. You'll see the status of things. So it's fantastic. That's all I wanted to cover today. If you find this helpful, please let me know in the comments. Thank you so much, and see you soon.